The day started like any other rotation aboard the merchant freighter Viridian Sky. I was running diagnostics on the cargo bay seals when I heard it. That sound, that awful soul-crushing sound that made every scale on my body stand on end. Humming. A human was humming. Now, before you judge me for my reaction, let me explain something. I'm Krell. We're a proud species. Warriors, traders, survivors of the Convergence Wars. We've faced down plasma storms, navigated black hole clusters, and once our ancestors stared down the entire Dravix armada without flinching. But humans are different. They're wrong in ways that make your brain itch. The humming grew louder, and I turned to see her walking into the cargo bay. Lieutenant Maya Torres. Human. 5'6". Brown hair tied back in what she called a ponytail. Deceptively small. Horrifyingly competent. She was carrying something long and dark, wrapped in cloth. "Morning, Vex," she called out, way too cheerful for someone who'd just finished a double shift in engineering. "Mind if I use this space? Need good lighting for maintenance work." I clicked my mandibles nervously. "What kind of maintenance?" She grinned. "Humans do that when they're happy. They bare their teeth. It's terrifying. Just cleaning my knife. Nothing fancy." "Nothing fancy," she said, as if humans ever did anything that was just nothing fancy. I watched as she settled down on one of the cargo crates, unwrapping the cloth with an almost reverent care. What emerged made my secondary heart skip a beat. The blade was massive, easily the length of my forearm. The metal caught the overhead lights and threw them back in a way that suggested it wasn't standard issue anything. This wasn't some factory-made tool. This was personal. "That's quite large for a knife," I managed to say. Maya laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, Vex, you should see what my uncle calls a knife. This is practically a letter opener by Texas standards." I had no idea what a Texas was, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know. She pulled out a maintenance kit, setting it beside her with practiced efficiency. Oils, whetstones, small tools I couldn't identify. Then she began. The first thing that struck me was how gentle she was. Her hands moved across the blade with a tenderness that seemed at odds with the weapon's brutal purpose. She hummed while she worked, some melody that probably meant something to humans, while I tried to look busy with my diagnostic pad. "You know what's funny?" she said suddenly, not looking up from her work. "I've been on 17 different ships in my career. Military, civilian, even did a stint on a Quilon medical vessel. And you know what? Every single species I've met has the same reaction to humans doing maintenance on personal weapons." I clicked my throat, the Krell equivalent of clearing it. "And what reaction is that?" "Nervousness mixed with fascination." She looked up then, her brown eyes meeting mine. "You're all scared of us, but you can't stop watching." She wasn't wrong. I should have left. Should have finished my diagnostics somewhere else. Anywhere else. But I stayed. Maya turned the blade, working on the other side now, and that's when I saw them. Emblems. Engraved into the metal itself, so finely done that they seemed to float beneath the surface. Not printed. Not etched with lasers. Hand-carved, unless I missed my guess. And what I saw made my blood run cold. The first emblem was a skull. Human skull, obviously. But wrapped around it was a serpent, and above it, wings spread wide. Beneath it, words in what I recognized as English, though I couldn't read them from my position. "The art on your blade," I heard myself say. "It's quite detailed." Maya smiled, but it wasn't her usual grin. This one was different. Softer. Sadder. "Yeah. My grandfather did the engraving. Took him 3 months. Said a blade that's going to protect your life deserves to be beautiful." Your grandfather was an artist? My grandfather was a Marine. She said it simply, the way you'd state a fact like water is wet or space is cold. Fought in the Unification Wars, before humanity joined the Galactic Council, back when we were still fighting ourselves. I felt my scales ripple. Humans fighting humans. I'd heard the stories, of course, how humanity had nearly wiped itself out a dozen times before they'd finally gotten their act together enough to reach the stars, how their own history was soaked in blood and fire, and things that made even the Dravik's campaigns look tame. He taught me to maintain this knife before he died, Maya continued, her hands never stopping their work. The blade gleamed now, pristine and deadly. Said it didn't matter if I ever had to use it. What mattered was the ritual, the respect, the understanding that tools of death deserve acknowledgement of what they are. She paused, holding the knife up to the light, examining it with a critical eye. Most species, they see weapons as necessary evils, something you use when you must. But humans, we understand them differently. How so? We know that the capacity for violence doesn't make you violent. It's the control that matters, the choice. She set the blade down and picked up what looked like oil in a small container. This knife has been in my family for 4 generations. Know how many people it's killed? I didn't want to know. I absolutely did not want to know. 0, she said, reading my expression correctly. Not 1. Because the kind of person who maintains their weapons, who respects them, who understands them, that's usually the kind of person who knows when not to use them. She began applying the oil with a cloth, working it into the metal with small circular motions. But that doesn't mean we can't. That's the thing about humans that freaks everyone out, isn't it? We're peaceful until we're not. And when we're not... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I moved closer, drawn despite myself. The other emblems, what do they represent? Maya's expression shifted. You really want to know? Yes. She turned the blade, showing me the fuller. More engravings ran along its length. This one here? That's the emblem of the 2nd Marine Division. My grandfather's unit. They fought in the Martian Rebellion. Nasty business. Colony wanted independence. Earth wanted control. Lot of good people died on both sides. Her finger traced along to another symbol. This is the Triple Crown of Desolation. It's not an official military decoration. It's something soldiers give each other. You earn it by surviving 3 separate engagements where your unit took more than 70% casualties. I felt my gills flutter. 70% casualties? And they gave emblems for surviving that? And this one? I pointed to a symbol near the hilt. It looked like 3 circles interconnected, with lines radiating outward. Maya's face went very still. That's the sigil of the Terra Liberation Front, the rebellion force my grandfather fought against before he joined the Marines. He was on the other side first. Started the war as a rebel. Ended it as a Marine. When they recruited him, they let him keep his history. Said it made him better at his job, knowing both sides. They recruited someone who fought against them? Vex, my friend. Let me tell you something about humans. We're really, really good at forgiveness when it suits us. And we're even better at recognizing talent. My grandfather killed 47 Earth soldiers before he switched sides. You know what the recruitment officer said when he walked into that office? I shook my head. He said, "Son, we could court-martial you, or we could pay you to teach our boys what you know. Your choice." Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. Grandpa took the job, served for 30 years, retired a colonel. Died in his sleep at 93 with his wife holding his hand. She held up the knife again, and now I could see all the emblems clearly. There were more than I'd initially noticed. So many more. Each one a story. Each one a piece of history. Every symbol on this blade represents a choice, Maya said quietly. A moment where someone decided who they were going to be. Rebel, Marine, warrior, peacemaker, monster, hero, usually a bit of everything. And the words? I asked, pointing to the English inscription I'd noticed earlier. Maya's smile was back, but it was the sad one again. It's from an old Earth text, pre-space age. It says, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for I am the meanest son of a gun in the valley." I blinked. That's a religious text? Modified slightly. Her grin was wicked now. The original is a bit more poetic, but Grandpa said, if you're going to engrave something on a weapon, might as well be honest about it. She set down the oil and picked up a whetstone. The sound it made against the blade was rhythmic, almost musical. You maintain this often? I asked. Once a week, minimum. More if I've been in rough environments. Moisture, dust, whatever. A blade this old needs attention. She checked the edge, running her thumb along it in a way that made me flinch. Perfect. Still sharp enough to split a hair. Have you ever needed to use it? Maya looked at me for a long moment. Define need. In combat. In danger. Twice. She said it matter-of-factly. First time was on Kepler Station. Raiders hit during a cargo transfer. They didn't expect resistance from a small human female. Wrong assumption. Second time was on Novara Prime. Pirates. Same story, different day. Did you kill them? No. Didn't need to. That's the other thing about humans, Vex. We're excellent at intimidation. You know what's scarier than someone who pulls a weapon? Someone who pulls a weapon and clearly knows how to use it, but is choosing not to. Yet. She finished with the whetstone and picked up a different cloth, giving the blade one final polish. The metal gleamed like captured starlight. There's another emblem you haven't asked about, she said, rotating the knife. Right here, near the point. I leaned in. It was smaller than the others, easily missed. A simple circle with a line through it. Nothing fancy, nothing elaborate. What does that represent? That's my mark, Maya said. My grandfather told me when I was old enough to inherit this knife, I had to add something of my own, something that represented my choice, my path. And a circle with a line means what? It means continue. Keep going. Don't stop. Because that's what humans do, Vex. We don't stop. We get knocked down. We get back up. We face the void. We laugh at it. We see the impossible, and we say, "Hold my beer." What is beer? A beverage that makes humans do stupid things with confidence. She wrapped the knife back in its cloth, setting it aside. But the point stands. Every person who carried this knife added their mark. Grandpa added the skull and serpent. His father added the wings. His grandmother added the crown. And I added the circle. Because no matter what happens, we continue. She stood up, stretching. You know what the real difference is between humans and everyone else in this galaxy? What? We've already survived our apocalypse, multiple times. Every other species out here, they're terrified of it. The great filter, the extinction event, the thing that wipes you out. But we've been there. Nuclear war, climate collapse, pandemic, resource wars, AI rebellion. We've done it all, and we're still here. She picked up the wrapped knife, cradling it like it was precious. Because to her, it was. So when other species look at humans and feel that little chill of fear, that's why. It's not that we're violent. It's that we're survivors. And survivors are the scariest thing in the universe because we've already faced the worst and decided it wasn't enough to stop us. Maya headed toward the door, then paused. Thanks for keeping me company, Vex. Most people get uncomfortable when I do maintenance. Nice to have someone who was curious instead of just scared. I was both, I admitted. She laughed. Good. Stay that way. Curiosity and caution. That's how you survive in this business. Then she was gone, humming again, leaving me alone in the cargo bay with my racing hearts and my spinning thoughts. I looked down at my diagnostic pad. The cargo bay seals were fine. They'd been fine. I'd known they were fine. But I'd stayed anyway, watching a human perform what she called a simple ritual. And now I understood something I hadn't before. The knife wasn't the weapon. Maya was. The knife was just the reminder, the symbol, the evidence of a legacy that stretched back through blood and fire, and choices made in moments where making the wrong choice meant dying. Every emblem on that blade was a story, and every story ended the same way, with someone still standing when the dust cleared. I clicked my mandibles and went back to work, but my mind was elsewhere. On emblems and choices, on humans and their terrifying persistence, on the fact that somewhere in that wrapped cloth was 4 generations of survival instinct, skill, and an absolute refusal to quit. And Maya Torres carried it like it weighed nothing at all. Because to her, maybe it didn't. Maybe when your species had already faced extinction and laughed, a knife with some engravings on it was just a family heirloom, just a tool, just a reminder of who you were and where you came from. But to me, to the rest of us watching humans move through the galaxy with their weapons and their rituals and their absolute certainty that they belonged here, it was a warning, not a threat, a warning. We were sharing space with a species that had survived things that would have ended most civilizations. And they'd done it not by being the strongest or the smartest or the fastest. They'd done it by being too stubborn to die. And as I watched Maya disappear down the corridor, still humming that strange melody, I realized something else. I was glad they were on our side. Because if humans could do that to themselves, what in the stars could they do to their enemies? I didn't want to find out, and I hoped I never would. The cargo bay seals were definitely fine. I triple-checked anyway, because when you're nervous, you do unnecessary things. It's a survival mechanism. Funny how I was thinking about survival a lot more since Maya had pulled out that knife. My shift ended 3 hours later. I went back to my quarters, logged my reports, and tried to sleep. But I kept seeing those emblems, each one a story, each one a choice, each one proof that humans understood violence in a way the rest of us didn't. Not as evil, not as good, just as a tool, a fact, something that existed and could be controlled if you respected it enough. The next morning, I saw Maya in the galley. She was drinking something, dark and hot that smelled terrible. Coffee, she called it. Another human poison that they somehow used as fuel. Sleep well? She asked. Not particularly. Thinking about the knife? Yes. She smiled that gentle smile. Don't worry, Vex. It's safely stored away. You're not in danger. I know. But? I clicked my throat. But now I know it exists, and I know what it represents, and that's somehow worse. Maya took a sip of her coffee. Knowledge is like that sometimes. Can't unknow things. But look at it this way. Now you understand humans a little better. And understanding is the first step to trust. Is it? It is for us. She finished her coffee and stood. By the way, we're approaching the Helix Nebula in about 6 hours. Captain wants all crew on standby. There have been reports of activity in that sector. What kind of activity? The kind that might require more than just diplomatic solutions. My scales rippled again. Pirates? Possibly. Or worse. She patted my shoulder as she walked past. Don't worry. You've got a human on board. We're annoyingly hard to kill. And she was gone again, leaving me with my cooling breakfast and my uncomfortable new knowledge. The knife existed. The emblems existed. The history existed. And somewhere in the ship, wrapped in cloth and waiting, was a reminder that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or strength. It was memory. The memory of every apocalypse they'd survived, every war they'd ended, every choice they'd made to keep going when stopping would have been easier. 6 hours until the nebula. 6 hours until we found out if today was the day that knife came out of its wrapping for more than just cleaning. I really hoped it wasn't, because if Maya Torres needed to use her grandfather's knife, it meant things had gone very, very wrong. And if things had gone that wrong, I was very glad I was on her side. 5 hours and 43 minutes later, alarms started screaming through the Viridian sky. I was in the engine room when it happened, running standard maintenance on the coolant systems. The sound made me drop my tools. Red lights bathed everything in crimson panic. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Captain Joran's voice crackled through the comms, tight with tension. We have 4 unidentified vessels approaching fast. They're not responding to hails. My first instinct was to run to my designated emergency post. My second instinct, the one I'm not proud of, was to find out where Maya was. I chose option 1, mostly. The bridge was controlled chaos when I arrived. Captain Joran, a Thoraxian with excellent combat experience, stood at the center console. His scales were flared, a sign of high stress. Around him, the crew worked their stations with focused intensity. Status report, Joran barked. 4 vessels confirmed. Configuration matches known raider groups. They're spreading out, trying to surround us. Lieutenant Hask, our Quellan navigator, manipulated the E holographic display. They're jamming long-range communications. We can't call for help. Weapons? Online and charged. But, Captain, they outgun us 3-1. Joran's jaw clenched. Where's Torres? Engineering, sir. She's already rerouting power to shields and weapons. Of course she was. Humans had this annoying habit of being exactly where they needed to be before anyone told them to be there. The captain noticed me hovering near the doorway. Vex, you're supposed to be at Damage Control Station 3. Going now, sir. But I wasn't. Not yet. Because the main view screen showed those 4 ships getting closer, and something about their formation made my secondary heart freeze. They weren't positioning for boarding. They were positioning for destruction. Captain, I heard myself say, those aren't raiders. Everyone turned to look at me. What? Joran demanded. Raiders want cargo. They want hostages. They want something they can profit from. I pointed at the screen. That formation is designed for maximum firing solution. They're not here to steal. They're here to eliminate. Silence. Then Hask spoke up, his voice shaking slightly. He's right. That's a military kill pattern. I've seen it in tactical databases. But who would want to destroy a civilian merchant vessel? Joran's confusion was genuine. We weren't carrying anything particularly valuable. Standard trade goods, medical supplies, nothing worth killing for. The comms crackled. Bridge, this is engineering. Torres here. Go ahead, Lieutenant. Captain, I need you to trust me. Pull up our cargo manifest from Helios Station, specifically Container 773. Joran's fingers flew over his console. His face went pale. Well, paler. Thoraxians don't have much color to begin with. Empty space? We logged it as empty space to balance weight distribution. Check the amended manifest, the one that was filed under Security Clearance Omega. More typing. Then Joran's scales went completely flat against his body, the Thoraxian equivalent of absolute terror. By the ancestors. What is it? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The captain looked up, his eyes meeting mine. Weapons. Advanced weapons. Prototype plasma rifles designed by the Korvax Alliance, stolen from their research facility 6 months ago. Everything clicked into place. And whoever wants them back doesn't want witnesses. Correct. Maya's voice through the comms was eerily calm, which means we have approximately 3 minutes before they open fire and turn us into expensive debris. So here's what's going to happen. Captain, you're going to surrender. What? Joran and I said it simultaneously. Surrender. Lower shields. Power down weapons. Make it look real. Torres, they'll board us. They'll kill everyone. No, they won't. Because you're going to be very convincing about telling them the weapons are in Cargo Bay 2. That's on the port side, right? Yes, but... And you're going to tell them that the security systems are malfunctioning, so they'll need to send a technical team to bypass the locks. That should buy us about 7 minutes once they board. Torres, what are you planning? There was a pause. Then, something my grandfather would approve of. Vex, I need you in Cargo Bay 3. Now. Why? Because you're about to learn another thing about humans. We're really creative when we're angry. The line went dead. Joran stared at the comms panel, then at me, then at the approaching ships. I don't suppose you have any idea what she's planning? None whatsoever, sir. Great. Absolutely great. He took a breath. All hands, prepare for boarders. And somebody find out what Torres is doing before she gets us all killed. I ran. Through corridors that suddenly felt too narrow, past crew members scrambling to their positions, down to the lower decks where the cargo bays sat in darkness. Cargo Bay 3 was dimly lit, emergency lighting only, and standing in the center, surrounded by equipment I couldn't identify, was Maya. She'd changed. No longer the casual engineering officer I'd watched clean her knife. She wore tactical gear now. Black, form-fitting, covered in pockets and attachment points, and strapped to her thigh was the knife, still wrapped, but visible. Good, you're here. She didn't look up from the device she was assembling. How good are you with magnetic clamps? Adequate. Maya, what are we doing? We're creating a surprise. Those ships think they're hunting scared merchants. They're wrong. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, connecting components with sharp clicks. They're hunting humans, and humans don't scare easy. There's only one of you. One is all it takes. She finished with the device and stood, hefting it over her shoulder. It looked like a mining charge, the kind used for asteroid excavation, except modified, heavily modified. When they board, they'll split their forces, some to secure the bridge, some to Cargo Bay 2 for the weapons, some to engineering to prevent us from jumping away. Standard boarding procedure? Exactly. Which means they'll leave their ships lightly crewed. Maybe 2 or 3 per vessel. And those ships will be sitting right outside our hull, docked and vulnerable. Understanding hit me like cold water. You're going to board them? We're going to board them. I need someone to watch my back and help with the technical aspects. You're smart, Vex. I've seen your work. And right now, smart is what I need. This is insane. Probably. But consider the alternative. They kill us all and take the weapons anyway. At least this way, we have a chance. She checked her wrist display. 2 minutes until they're in range. You in or out? I should have said out. Should have run back to my station and let the professionals handle it. Except Maya was the professional. And something about the way she stood there, calm and ready and absolutely certain, made me believe her. In. Good. Grab that harness over there. We're going for a walk outside. The next 90 seconds were the longest of my life. Maya explained the plan in rapid-fire sentences while we suited up. Not full spacesuits, light EVA gear. Just enough to survive vacuum for 20 minutes. When they dock, they'll create a temporary seal at airlocks 2 and 4. That's standard. What's not standard is airlock 6. It's maintenance only. Small, quiet. And it opens directly onto the hull about 30 meters from where their ships will be attached. You've done this before. Once. Different circumstances. Same principle. Humans are really good at going places we're not supposed to be. The ship shuddered. The enemy vessels were firing warning shots. Captain Joran to all hands. Prepare for boarding. I repeat, prepare for boarding. Surrender, protocols in effect. Maya's jaw tightened. He's good. Sounds terrified. They'll buy it. Another shudder, stronger this time. The distinctive clang of magnetic docking clamps engaging with our hull. That's our cue. Maya opened airlock 6 manually, bypassing the computer controls. The outer door stayed sealed, but the inner door slid open with a hiss. Remember, once we're outside, hand signals only. No comms. They might be monitoring frequencies. How will I know what the signals mean? She grinned. That terrifying human grin. Most of them are pretty obvious. Follow my lead. Don't die. And if things go really wrong, hide behind something solid. Comforting. We stepped into the airlock. Maya sealed the inner door and activated the cycling process. Air hissed out. Pressure dropped. My ears popped painfully, despite the helmet's compensation systems. Then the outer door opened, and we stepped onto the hull of the Viridian Sky. Space is quiet. Everyone knows that. But knowing and experiencing are different things. The silence was absolute. Oppressive. I could hear my own breathing, loud and raspy inside my helmet. Maya moved with confidence, mag boots clicking against the hull with each step. She carried the modified mining charge in one hand, a compact plasma cutter in the other. I followed, trying not to think about the infinite void beneath my feet. The enemy ships were exactly where she'd predicted. 4 vessels, sleek and dangerous, attached to our hull like parasites. I could see figures moving inside through the small portholes. The boarding parties were already inside the Viridian Sky. Maya pointed to the nearest ship, then to herself, then to me, then made a circular motion with her finger. She wanted me to go around. I nodded, not trusting myself to give a thumbs up or whatever humans did. We split up. Moving around the hull of a ship while it's attached to another ship in open space is not something they cover in merchant marine training. I kept my eyes on the hull beneath my feet, following the curve toward the enemy vessel's airlock. Through the porthole, I saw 2 figures. Pirates, probably. Armed. Bored-looking. They weren't expecting trouble from outside. Humans call that a mistake. Maya appeared on the opposite side of the porthole. She held up 3 fingers. Then 2. Then 1. Then she attached the mining charge to the hull and pressed something on its surface. We both moved, fast, around the curve of the ship, out of the blast radius. My hearts were hammering so hard I thought they might bruise my ribcage. 5 seconds. Nothing. 10 seconds. Still nothing. 15. The silent explosion was visible as a flash of light, The hull ruptured outward, tearing open a hole about 2 meters wide. Atmosphere vented in a crystalline spray of frozen oxygen. The 2 pirates inside were sucked out, tumbling into space, their screams silent. Maya was moving before I could process what I'd seen. She launched herself toward the breach, using her suit's small maneuvering jets. I followed, clumsy and terrified. Inside the ship, emergency bulkheads had sealed, containing the damage. But we were in now. In their ship. In their space. Maya removed her helmet, indicating I should do the same. Atmosphere was holding in this section. She pulled out a small device and checked it. 2 more crew on this ship. Bridge level. Engineering's unmanned. How do you know? Life sign detector. Basic military tech. Every human soldier carries one. She started moving toward the interior. Come on! We need to secure this ship before they realize what's happening. The interior was cramped, clearly designed for a smaller crew. Efficient, but uncomfortable. Maya moved through it like she'd designed it herself, checking corners, listening at doors. We found the first crew member in what looked like a galley. He was a Dravix, tall and heavily muscled, pouring something hot into a cup. He never saw us coming. Maya hit him with something small and cylindrical. There was a crackling sound, and he dropped like his bones had turned to water. Stun baton, she whispered, catching him before he hit the floor. He'll wake up with a headache, but otherwise fine. Help me secure him. We used magnetic restraints from her gear. Professional. Clean. The Dravix would wake up confused, but unharmed. The second crew member was on the bridge, a Quelon, younger than Hask, monitoring the communications array. Maya took him down the same way. 2 crew members, 2 silent takedowns, 0 casualties. Now comes the fun part. Maya slid into the pilot's seat and started working the controls. Can you access their targeting systems? I moved to the weapons station. The interface was unfamiliar, but logical. I think so. What do you want me to do? Lock onto the ship to our starboard, the one docked at airlock 4. My fingers trembled as I worked. Done. Fire everything. What? Fire. Everything. Now. I hesitated for maybe half a second. Then I remembered the alternative. I pressed the firing sequence. The ship shook as plasma cannons discharged. On the view screen, I saw the starboard enemy. Vessel light up like a solar flare. Shields flared, failed. Hull plating melted. The ship listed, losing power. Good. Now, target the one at airlock 2. This time I didn't hesitate. More weapons fire. More destruction. The 4th ship is breaking away, I reported. They've realized what's happening. Maya's smile was sharp. Too late. Activate this ship's self-destruct. 10-minute timer. Then we run for the Viridian sky before they blow our airlock. This ship has a self-destruct? Every military vessel does. And these idiots didn't change the default codes. Her fingers flew over the console. There. 10 minutes. Let's go. We ran. Back through the corridors, back to the breach, back out into space with minutes to spare. The jump back to the Viridian sky was harder than the trip out. My maneuvering jets sputtered. Maya grabbed my arm and towed me, her stronger jets compensating. We tumbled through airlock 6 with 30 seconds to spare. The inner door sealed. Pressure returned. We collapsed on the floor, breathing hard. Did we just... I couldn't finish the sentence. Yep. Destroyed 2 ships, disabled a 3rd, and scared off the 4th. Not bad for 20 minutes of work. Maya pulled off her helmet, her hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. We should probably tell the captain. The bridge was in pandemonium when we arrived. Joran was shouting orders, coordinating crew responses to the boarding party that was now trapped on our ship without backup or escape. He saw us and froze. Torres? Vex? Where in the name of all the ancestors have you been? Solving the problem, sir. Maya straightened her uniform. The enemy vessels are neutralized. 3 destroyed or disabled, 1 fled. The boarding party is contained. I recommend we start negotiations for their surrender. Silence. Complete silence. Every eye on the bridge stared at us. Finally, Joran found his voice. You did what? Solved the problem, sir. With respect, we didn't have time for a committee meeting. Lieutenant Hask was staring at his sensor display like it had personally offended him. She's right. 3 vessels showing critical damage. 1 jumped away, and the boarders are... They're surrendering, sir. They're requesting terms. Joran looked at Maya, then at me, then at the view screen showing the wreckage of enemy ships floating in space. Lieutenant Torres, when this is over, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about the chain of command. Yes, sir. But first, he straightened. Someone get me a line to that boarding party. Let's find out who they work for and why they wanted those weapons badly enough to attack a civilian vessel. The aftermath took hours. The surviving pirates, shocked and demoralized, surrendered without additional violence. Turned out they were hired muscle, paid by a Korvax splinter faction that wanted the weapons for reasons nobody was willing to explain. The captain secured them in the cargo hold, called in the authorities, using the now unjammed communications, and filed enough reports to keep bureaucrats busy for months. Maya went back to engineering like nothing had happened. I found her there 6 hours later, running diagnostics on the engines. You could have died, I said. Yep. We could have died. Also, yep. Was it worth it? She looked up from her work. Vex, let me tell you something about humans. We have this saying, better to die on your feet than live on your knees. It's old, pre-space age, but it's stuck around because it's true. Those pirates wanted us to roll over and die quietly. That's not how we work. But the knife, you didn't even use it. Didn't need to. The knife is for when other options fail. Today, other options worked. She smiled. But it was there, ready, just in case. That's what it represents, remember? The capacity for violence, controlled by choice. Your grandfather would be proud. Maybe. He always said the best fights are the ones you win without fighting. We won today. The crew survived. The bad guys lost. And nobody died who didn't need to die. She went back to her diagnostics. Besides, using the knife would have required cleaning it again. Already did that this week. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The tension that had been building since the alarms went off finally broke, and I laughed until my ribs hurt. Maya grinned. There you go. Laughter's good. Means you're processing the trauma in a healthy way. Humans learned that lesson after about 50 generations of warfare. Laugh or go crazy. Those are the options. I choose laugh. Good choice. Later that night, after my shift ended and the Viridian sky was safely underway to our next destination, I went to my quarters and tried to sleep. I kept seeing Maya on that enemy ship, moving with precision and purpose. Kept seeing the emblems on her knife, each one a story of survival and choice. Kept thinking about how casually she'd destroyed 3 ships and saved all our lives. The thing about humans, I realized, was that they didn't separate who they were from what they could do. Maya was an engineer and a soldier, a protector and a warrior, someone who cleaned her weapons with reverence and used them only when necessary. The emblems on her blade weren't decorations. They were reminders, lessons carved in metal, passed down through generations, each one teaching the same fundamental truth. Humans survive. Not because they're lucky, not because they're strong, but because they choose to. Every single time. In every single situation. No matter the cost. And if you're smart, you don't get in their way. I fell asleep thinking about that. About choices and survival. About emblems and knives and the terrifying competence of a species that had already survived its apocalypse. When I woke up, we were 3 days from our destination. The pirates were secured. The weapons were accounted for. The ship was running smoothly. And somewhere in engineering, Maya Torres was humming, while she worked, with her grandfather's knife safely stored away, waiting for the next time it was needed. I hoped that time never came. But if it did, I was glad she was on our side. Because humans, I'd learned, were many things. Complex, contradictory, creative, dangerous. But most of all, they were survivors. And survivors, with their emblems and their choices and their absolute refusal to quit, they were the scariest thing in the galaxy. Not because of what they would do, but because of what they could do, and chose not to, until they chose otherwise. And then you'd better hope you were on the right side of their knife.